I drove across 7 states to help my friend escape her divorce and put her on my car insurance. Then police showed up at my door at 11 p.m. because my car was in a hidden run. My neighbor's bumper was hanging off, and my friend looked me in the eye and told me she didn't think she hit anything. I've been friends with Meg since 2021, and in that time she's become someone I genuinely thought I could rely on. When her marriage fell apart recently, and she needed to leave the life she'd been living in the southern US, I didn't hesitate. I drove all the way down from the Northeast by myself to help her pack, get out safely, and bring her back to live with me and my partner. It was one of the most stressful drives of my life. 7 states alone, long stretches of highway, exhaustion, and that constant low-level fear that something would go wrong and I'd be stranded far from home. But I kept telling myself it was worth it because she was my friend and she needed help. When we headed back north, she drove my car while I drove the moving truck with her belongings. That trip alone was over 20 hours, and she handled the drive without any issues. She seemed careful, attentive, and responsible. That experience made me feel comfortable trusting her with my car, so once we got home and she was settling in, I added her to my insurance. She didn't have a vehicle anymore. The separation from her ex-husband had left her without one, and I wanted to make sure that if she ever needed to use mine, everything would be properly covered for both of us. I'd only had this car for about 10 months. In that time, I'd never been in an accident with it. The only damage it had ever suffered was from an attempted theft when I used to park in a rougher neighborhood. It's a Kia, and unfortunately, that made it a target. Even then, everything had been repaired professionally, and since that incident the car had been in perfect condition. No dents, no scratches, nothing out of place. I took pride in keeping it that way. Until tonight. At around 11 p.m., my phone rang unexpectedly. It was one of my neighbors, sounding confused and a little concerned. They told me there were police officers at my door and that they were outside looking closely at my car. My heart immediately dropped into my stomach. I hadn't gone anywhere all day, not once, and for a moment I just stood there frozen, trying to figure out what could possibly be happening. I hurried downstairs, pulse racing, and just as I reached the door, I finally heard the knock. When I opened it, there were 4 officers standing on my porch. The first thing they asked was whether the car parked outside belonged to me. I told them yes. Then they asked if I had driven it today. I said no, because I truly hadn't left the house at all. They asked if anyone else might have driven it, and I turned to go ask Meg, but before I could even call her name, she was already standing behind me. The moment I saw her expression, something felt off. I can't explain exactly what it was, but her face looked stiff and strangely blank, like she'd put on a mask. When she spoke, her voice sounded even stranger. It had this overly bright, artificial politeness to it, the kind of tone someone uses in customer service when they're trying very hard to sound calm and agreeable. It didn't sound natural for the situation, and it definitely didn't sound like her. The contrast made my stomach tighten. She told the officers that yes, she had driven the car earlier that day. One of them asked her directly if she had hit anything. She said she didn't think she had. There was a pause, and the way she delivered that answer made every alarm bell in my head start ringing. It wasn't just hesitation. It felt like she was carefully choosing words, trying to sound unsure instead of honest. Her pitch lifted slightly, her sentences felt overly soft, and the whole thing came across as someone playing dumb rather than someone genuinely confused. I suddenly had this sinking feeling that she knew exactly what they were talking about. The officers pressed her again, asking if she was absolutely sure she hadn't struck anything. After another moment, she said she thought she might have hit a snowbank. A snowbank. We were told she hit the neighbor's car. According to both the police and the neighbor, it had been caught on camera, footage showing her getting out of my car, checking it for damage, then getting back in and leaving. I haven't actually seen the video myself yet. All I know is what they told me. When I asked the neighbor if he could send me the footage, he refused and said I'd need to go through my insurance company to obtain it. I'm planning to call them first thing Monday morning. What really shook me was that I had never been told anything about this. Not a word. We had an understanding when I added her to my insurance that if anything ever happened, anything at all, she would tell me immediately. That agreement clearly didn't mean much now. Standing outside with the police and my neighbor was overwhelming. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone while pulling up my insurance information. I kept apologizing to my neighbors over and over because I felt awful that they were dealing with this. None of this was their fault, and I hated being the reason their night was disrupted and their car damaged. Once the information exchange was finished and the officers left, we went back inside. Almost immediately, she started apologizing. She kept repeating that she thought she had only hit a snow bank. She said she hadn't seen any damage on my car, so she didn't think it was a big deal and just drove off. She offered to cover the difference if my insurance premium goes up and said she'd pay to have the scratches buffed out of my car. I didn't really respond. I told her I needed time to process everything and went into my room to talk it through with my partner. My head was spinning, part shock, part anxiety, and part this growing, uncomfortable suspicion that something about her story didn't line up. After a bit, we decided to go outside together and actually look at both cars. I hadn't gotten a good look at the neighbor's vehicle earlier in the chaos, and my partner hadn't seen either car yet. The moment I saw mine, my stomach sank. The front passenger side bumper was clearly scratched, not a tiny scuff you'd have to hunt for, but a long, visible scrape starting under the headlight and wrapping around toward the front of the tire. It was obvious. The kind of damage you notice immediately when you approach the car. Seeing it there, plain as day, made her explanation feel even less believable. Combined with her strange tone with the police, it made the whole situation feel increasingly dishonest. But it got worse when we walked over to the neighbor's car. There wasn't a snowbank anywhere. I mean, none. The street had clearly been plowed, and everything had melted. There were about 15 cars parked along the road, each one sitting in front of nothing but bare pavement. No piles of snow, no icy mounds, nothing that could even remotely be mistaken for a snow bank. Just clean, open street. And there, right in the middle of it all, sat the neighbor's car. The front driver's side bumper was sagging downward, no longer properly attached to the hood. One headlight was pushed out of place. The license plate had been ripped off. Paint was missing across the front, and there were deep scratches, cracks, and dents scattered across the bumper and hood. It didn't look like the kind of damage you'd get from gently nudging a pile of snow. It looked like a real collision. I just stood there staring at it, the cold air hitting my face while everything clicked into place. The story about the snowbank didn't make sense. The damage didn't match. The empty street didn't match. And the idea that she had supposedly checked my car afterward, like the camera reportedly showed, made it even harder to believe she truly thought nothing had happened. At that point, the shock started to burn off, and something else took its place. I was angry. Not just upset about the damage to my car, or the insurance headache, or the embarrassment with the neighbors. I was angry because it felt like I was being lied to. I had gone out of my way to help her, driven across multiple states, opened my home, put her on my insurance, trusted her with something that mattered to me, and now I was standing there looking at two damaged cars and a story that clearly didn't add up. I took photos of both cars, trying to document everything while my hand still felt unsteady. My head was buzzing with that mix of disbelief and anger that makes it hard to think clearly, but I knew I'd want proof later. Afterward, I started walking back toward the house, still replaying everything in my mind, when I decided to swing past my car one more time. Part of me wanted to check the side mirror, to see if maybe there was paint transfer from the neighbor's hood, something else that might help confirm exactly how the impact happened. That's when I saw Meg standing outside, looking at my car. She was just there, staring at it in the dim light like she was inspecting the damage herself. The sight of her standing over my car like that after everything I'd just seen made something twist hard in my chest. I didn't say a word. I didn't ask what she was doing. I just walked straight past and went inside because I knew if I opened my mouth in that moment, nothing good would come out. A few minutes later, I could hear her talking to my partner. She kept apologizing, saying how sorry she was and insisting she genuinely didn't know she had hit anything serious. She repeated that she thought it was just a snowbank. I didn't believe her. Not even a little. I'll be the first to admit I'm not a perfect driver. I've hit things before with my previous car, scraped a pole, bumped a curb, little mistakes here and there. I joke about it sometimes, blaming it on just being a girl who isn't always the most spatially aware driver. But every single time I've ever hit something, no matter how small, I felt it immediately. You always feel it. There's a jolt, a sound, a resistance, something that tells you instantly that your car made contact with more than just air. Looking at the extent of the damage to the neighbor's car, there was absolutely no way she didn't know. The bumper wasn't just lightly tapped. It was sagging, misaligned, with the headlight pushed out and the license plate ripped off. That kind of impact doesn't happen silently or invisibly. And if the camera really shows her getting out and checking, then she had every opportunity to see exactly what she hit before driving away. The more I thought about it, the more I felt sick to my stomach, not just about the accident, but about the feeling that I was being lied to. A little while later, she came to talk to me directly. She kept repeating the same thing, that she thought she hit a snowbank, that she didn't realize there was damage, that she'd cover anything financial that came from this. Her voice had that same careful tone again, like she was trying to keep everything calm and manageable. I pointed out the obvious. I told her there was no snow anywhere on that street, none. I told her the damage to both cars was visible and significant. I explained that in my own experience, I've never once hit something without feeling it, and that it didn't make sense that she wouldn't have known. I also reminded her that if she got out of the car like the video supposedly shows, then she had to have seen the neighbor's vehicle. She had to have known she hit something. She kept circling back to the snowbank explanation, like if she said it enough times it might somehow become believable. Then she said something that made both me and my partner stop cold. She said, "One thing I'm being fully honest about is I didn't know I scratched your car." That phrasing stuck in my head immediately. One thing I'm being fully honest about. It sounded less like reassurance and more like an accidental admission. Like she was choosing her honesty carefully, as if other parts of the story weren't quite as solid. The moment the words left her mouth, the feeling that I was being misled only got stronger. At that point, I felt emotionally drained and too angry to keep going in circles. I told her to give me my keys back. I said I needed time to think because right now I felt like I was being lied to and I couldn't sort through any of it while everything was still so heated. She handed them over and said we could talk about it later when things weren't so intense. But honestly, I don't know if I'm ever going to not feel heated about it. Because this isn't just about scratches on a bumper or an insurance claim. It's about everything leading up to this. The trip across multiple states to help her, opening my home, putting her on my insurance, trusting her with something important to me, and now being faced with a situation where what I'm seeing with my own eyes and what she's telling me simply do not match. If she had come to me right away and told me what happened, if she had gone to the neighbors immediately, owned up to it, and been honest from the start, I truly don't think I would feel the way I do right now. Accidents happen. Cars get scratched. Insurance exists for a reason. I could have handled all of that. What I can't seem to handle is the way I found out. Police officers at my door late at night, questions I wasn't prepared for, and then what feels like nothing but half-truths and excuses afterward. That part is what keeps replaying in my head. I value my friendships deeply. I try to live by the golden rule, treat others the way you'd want to be treated. Over the past 7 months, I've done everything I could to help Meg land on her feet. I drove across multiple states to help her leave a difficult situation, helped her move back here, opened my home to her, and tried to make sure she felt safe and supported while she rebuilt her life. I never once held any of that over her head. I did it because she's my friend and I cared. But right now, it feels like when it came to something as serious as my car being involved in what could be considered a hit and run, I couldn't even get basic honesty. That realization is hitting me harder than the damage to the car itself. It's making me question not just this incident, but the friendship and the living situation as a whole. I hate that my mind is going there, but I can't ignore the uneasy feeling sitting in my chest. I texted my therapist about everything, and I'm waiting to hear back. My partner and I also had a long, honest conversation tonight. I told him that regardless of how the insurance claim turns out, this is going to shift how I see Meg and how I interact with her moving forward. My trust feels violated, and once that's cracked, it's not something I can just pretend didn't happen. He understood completely and agreed that we need to take time to really think through what this means for our home and for the future. I have a feeling she's going to try to approach me again tomorrow to talk about it. Right now, I don't think I'm willing to have that conversation until I've seen the video footage myself. I want the facts first. Part of me wants to give her the chance to finally be fully honest with me, but another part of me wonders what good that would even do at this point. I'm still processing everything that happened today, and I feel unsettled, angry, and honestly a little heartbroken. This feels bigger than a simple mistake. It feels like something that speaks to character, to accountability, and to whether I can trust her in my space and with my belongings moving forward. I don't want to make any rash decisions while emotions are high, but I also don't want to ignore something that feels this significant. Right now I feel stuck between wanting to be fair and wanting to protect myself. I don't know if this is something that can be worked through with boundaries and honesty, or if it's the kind of breach that permanently changes a friendship. I keep asking myself what the right next step is, whether that means setting firm limits, reconsidering the living arrangement, or just taking time and distance until I can think clearly. Any advice is welcome about how I should move forward from here. What would you do in this situation? This feels like something too large and telling of character for me to look past, and I am feeling very uneasy and unsure about what steps to take next. I'm still processing the events of today, but I feel like I could really use some outside point of view. More than anything, I think I just need some outside perspective. Because at the moment, all I know is that I feel hurt, uneasy, and unsure of what moving forward is supposed to look like from here.